This is me doing a reveal of my artwork, The Forest Fairy. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this artwork came to be. First, a little bit just about that. It's about the work itself. It's a 16 by 20 oil pastel work that I finished in January of 2026. It was done on ampersand pastel board and was made using Sennelier oil pastels. And it took me about 2 weeks to make it. About how I came up with the idea to do this. Whenever I'm working, I like to listen to music on Spotify, and it just cycles through mostly music and game scores at random. And at one day, it kind of just started playing some of the Trevor Jones soundtrack from Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal, which, by the way, is one of my favorite movies. Anyway, it got me thinking about the artist who designed the creatures for the movie. His name is Brian Froud. And since he's still alive and kicking, I'm not going to show you any of his works because I don't want to get a ding for copyright infringement from YouTube. But I'll leave a link in the description so you can find some of his work. Anyway, one of his specialties is fairies, and he depicts them as diminutive humanoids with insect-like wings. A pretty common description of fairies. So now, a lot of my art deals with folklore and fairy tales, particularly medieval folklore. And thinking about these fairies as depicted by Brian Froud, it got me wondering if you ever see winged small fairies actually appear in medieval folklore, fairy tales. After all, they are called fairy tales. But it turns out that the answer is actually no. Unlike trolls or goblins or elves, little winged fairies are not part of medieval or ancient folklore. Now, there are fairies, to be sure, in medieval stories, but they're not like the way we see them today. They were more like nature spirits, or actually even more like minor gods. And they were depicted and thought of as full-size humans, no wings. They might be extra beautiful or extra ugly, but otherwise they look like people. So where did the idea of the little winged folk come from? I actually found part of that answer reading about Brian Froud. He talks about one of his inspirations, a Victorian illustrator named Arthur Rackham. It was this guy, along with a couple of other artists, one named Richard Dadd and another one named Joseph Noel Patton. I may have mutilated their names there, but anyway, they were the artists who started adding wings to fairies. And they did this in the Victorian era, so I can show you a little bit of their work because it's no longer under copyright. Anyhow, but they were the ones who kind of started this trend of the way fairies look today as we see them. Now, the idea that they had was that adding bird-like wings to a being made that being angelic. Adding bat wings made a figure demonic. So for fairies, they wanted something that was a bit more neutral, and so they decided to add insect wings. Now, these guys weren't the ones to make fairies small and mischievous, though. That actually comes from a little earlier. Actually started with William Shakespeare, who kind of started the trend with the fairies in A Midsummer Night's Dream. But there were also some playwrights and such that would depict them as small and clever after that. So it's a little bit of a progression, an evolution of this sort of creature design. Anyway, so all this researching inspired me to create my own depiction of a fairy. And I, of course, went with a more modern fantasy style that everybody is familiar with. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little discussion. Thank you and good night.